a community which remarkably represents more than 130 nationalities.
They stripped Camilla's son of everything. No warning, no mercy, gone. And while the palace was still in shock, two complete outsiders walked straight into the power vacuum and took control. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody even knew it was possible.
Ambitions. And perhaps most importantly of all, my father has always understood that people of all faiths.
But the most jaw-dropping part of this entire story is what Prince William has been secretly doing behind closed doors all along. Something has shifted inside the British royal family, and it did not happen with a grand announcement or a carefully staged ceremony. It happened the way most significant changes do in the monarchy, quietly, through the withdrawal of possibility, through the slow repositioning of people, and through the kind of institutional logic that does not care much for personal feelings or family warmth. Queen Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, will never hold a royal title. That much is now settled, and while it has been technically true for a long time, the weight of that reality has landed differently in recent months, as the question stopped being theoretical and started being something the people involved were actually asked to speak about in public. Tom is 51 years old. He is a food writer, a restaurant critic, and the author of 9 cookbooks. He has won the Guild of Food Writers Award and has built a career that most people would consider genuinely successful on its own terms. He is also the son of the Queen of the United Kingdom, the stepson of the King, and the godson of King Charles III. He attended Queen Elizabeth's state funeral in 2022 and was present at the coronation of Charles and Camilla in May 2023. By any ordinary measure of closeness, he is very much part of this family. And yet, when the question of a royal title came up during a podcast appearance on Samuel Goldsmith's Good Food Show, Tom did not hesitate before answering. He said quite plainly that if he were ever made a prince, people would storm the gates of Buckingham Palace. He called the idea appalling. He said it would set back the cause of the monarchy by many years. Some people heard that as a joke. Others who follow the palace more closely heard something else entirely. A man who has already been told, one way or another, that the answer is no, and who has found a way to make peace with it by turning it into a punchline. The constitutional reality here is not complicated. Camilla's children from her first marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles, Tom and his sister Laura Lopes, have never held royal titles, and the letters patent that govern royal standing have never extended to include them. When Camilla married Charles in 2005, her children were already adults, and there was never a formal mechanism to bring them into the line of succession or grant them royal styles. Her becoming queen consort in 2022 and subsequently queen did not change that. The rules that govern who holds a title and who does not are not written with exceptions for blended families or personal affection. They are written in legal documents that the reigning monarch can adjust, but only within limits shaped by centuries of precedent. Tom himself has acknowledged this. He knows where the boundary sits. He has spoken about his mother and stepfather with genuine warmth, describing Charles as a wonderful step-grandfather to his own children, Lola and Freddie. He has said publicly that he speaks of modern blended families with ease, and that his family situation, for all its unusual dimensions, feels normal from the inside. But normal from the inside is not the same as equal in terms of institutional standing. And the monarchy, above everything else, is an institution. What makes this moment feel significant is not that the door has been closed on Tom. It has always been closed, technically speaking. What makes it significant is the timing. Over the past 2 years, King Charles has managed a serious health challenge that began in early 2024. The demands on the working members of the royal family have increased. Questions about who carries weight, who shows up, and who represents the crown have become more pressing. In that context, the boundaries between those inside the formal structure and those outside it have come into sharper focus. Tom appears at informal occasions. He shows up at horse races. Camilla attends his book events, but he does not carry out royal engagements. He does not represent the crown in any official capacity. He occupies, in the words of one description, a unique space adjacent to royal life without being consumed by it. That space has its own kind of dignity, but it is not the same as belonging. And while the story of Camilla's son has played out quietly, another story has been unfolding in a very different key. One that has caught the attention of royal watchers and ordinary people alike, because it speaks to something the monarchy has been trying to show the world for some time now. That it can adapt, that it can make room for people who do not fit the old mold, that it can still find moments of genuine warmth in an era that is deeply skeptical of inherited privilege. Peter Phillips is King Charles's nephew. He is Princess Anne's only son. He is 48 years old and he was born, remarkably, as the first legitimate grandchild of a reigning British monarch in more than 500 years to arrive in the world without a title of any kind. That was a choice his parents made deliberately. Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips turned down offers from Queen Elizabeth that would have given Peter a courtesy peerage. They wanted him to have a normal life, and by every account, that is largely what he has had. He attended Gordonstown, the same school his grandfather Prince Philip attended. He studied at the University of Exeter. He worked in corporate hospitality and later in sports management. He became the managing director of a boutique sports company. He organized the Queen's Patrons Lunch in 2016, which brought 10,000 people to the mall to celebrate her 90th birthday. He did all of this without a title, without a royal household, and without any expectation that the world owed him attention, simply because of who his grandmother was. His first marriage to Canadian management consultant Autumn Kelly took place at St. George's Chapel in Windsor in 2008 and produced 2 daughters, Savannah and Isla. That marriage ended in separation in 2019 and divorce in 2021. By 2024, Peter had introduced a new partner to the family, Harriet Sperling, an NHS pediatric nurse and freelance writer from Gloucestershire. They made their first public appearance together at the Badminton Horse Trials in May of that year. What followed moved quickly by royal standards. By June 2024, Peter had introduced Harriet to King Charles and Queen Camilla. By December 2025, she was standing alongside the royal family for the Christmas service at Sandringham. On the 1st of August 2025, the engagement was announced through an official spokesperson, who confirmed that both families had been informed jointly and that King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the Prince and Princess of Wales had all been told. It was a statement that, in its careful language, signaled something important. This was not a peripheral event happening at the margins of the monarchy. This had the attention of the people at the center of it. The wedding took place on the 6th of June 2026 at All Saints Church in the Cotswolds village of Kemble, close to where Harriet grew up and near Princess Anne's Gatcombe estate, where the reception was held. The guest list ran to around 150 people. There was no global television audience, no live stream, no cathedral setting. And yet the senior members of the royal family came out in force. King Charles and Queen Camilla were there, though they left early to attend the Epsom Derby. Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, arrived together. Princess Anne was present, as was Zara Tindall and her husband Mike. The event brought together a family that has not always found it easy to appear united. Royal experts who covered the day noted that this was the first major royal wedding since Queen Elizabeth's death in September 2022, and they pointed to something beneath the celebration that felt worth paying attention to. In a royal family increasingly focused on defining who is in and who is out, on drawing clear lines between those who carry out official duties and those who exist at the periphery, Peter and Harriet's wedding stood as something different. It was a gathering driven by genuine affection rather than obligation. Harriet, a working nurse with no aristocratic background, had been steadily welcomed into the family. Attending Royal Ascot, Wimbledon, the Cheltenham Festival, and even the summer retreat at Balmoral before the engagement was even announced. One royal commentator described the occasion as a moment that offered the family a brief but real reprieve from the tensions that have defined so much of its recent public life. Another noted that Peter and Harriet's story, a divorced man without a title, marrying an NHS nurse, blending their children from previous relationships, was exactly the kind of human, uncomplicated narrative that the monarchy has struggled to project, in an era where every gesture is scrutinized and every division is amplified. For Tom Parker Bowles, standing somewhere outside these walls, the contrast must carry its own quiet weight. He too is part of this family. He too attended major events, shared Christmas traditions, and built genuine bonds across the generations. But the institutional boundary that keeps him outside the formal structure of the crown has not moved. And as Peter and Harriet stepped forward into a new chapter, drawing the senior royals together in a Cotswolds church on a June afternoon, the picture that emerged said something clear about where the monarchy is placing its symbolic energy and whose story it is choosing to tell. Prince William has never been described as someone who surprises people. That has always been part of the point. From the moment he was old enough to understand what he was born into, he has carried himself with a steadiness that the institution around him seemed to require. Where his brother Harry moved toward friction, William moved toward structure. Where others created headlines, he managed his image with a patience that sometimes looked like caution and sometimes looked like calculation. It has turned out to be both. What has emerged in the past year or so is a picture of a man who has been doing something far more consequential than simply waiting to become king. William has been quietly reshaping the monarchy from within, and the results of that work are now visible in ways that have caught even seasoned royal observers off guard. Not because of anything dramatic he has said or done in public, but because of the cumulative effect of a long series of small, deliberate moves that, taken together, amount to something quite significant. The most visible sign came at Trooping the Color in June 2026, the annual event which marks the king's official birthday and has for decades served as one of the monarchy's most photographed moments of apparent family unity, looked noticeably different this year. The balcony of Buckingham Palace, which during Queen Elizabeth's reign would regularly be crowded with extended family members spanning several generations, had been trimmed down considerably. The Yorks were absent. Prince Harry and Meghan were not there. What remained was a much smaller group of working royals, and the composition of that group bore a clear logic that went beyond accident or scheduling. Royal commentators covering the event noted that this reflected something William had been working toward for some time. His vision for the monarchy, discussed in private and confirmed through the pattern of decisions being made around him, involves a fundamental rethinking of how the institution presents itself and justifies itself to the public. He has reportedly pushed for titles to be removed from non-working royals. He has raised concerns about royal properties being used by family members who do not carry out official duties. He has questioned staffing levels and the cost of maintaining traditions that serve more ceremonial than practical purposes. And he has done all of this without making a single public statement that could be pinned to him directly. Royal author Andrew Loney offered a telling observation around this time, describing Charles as sentimental and compassionate, someone who tends to hesitate when faced with difficult institutional decisions. William, by contrast, is said to be operating differently. He cannot speak out publicly because he is still second in line, and it is not his place to openly challenge the reigning monarch's decisions. But those familiar with the inner workings of the palace suggest his influence is being felt in ways that go beyond what his formal position would suggest. He is not waiting passively. He is preparing actively, and the people around him understand the difference. The moment that made this most apparent to the outside world did not come from a speech or a policy announcement. It came from an absence. When reports emerged in June 2026 that King Charles had been quietly facilitating Prince Harry and Meghan's return to the United Kingdom, including allegedly offering them royal accommodation and covering costs associated with their visit, the reaction from William was immediate. He did not release a statement. He did not give an interview. What he did was leave. After the official Trooping the Color duties concluded, William departed the customary family lunch that follows the event. He took Catherine and their 3 children and left the celebrations. There was no public explanation offered. Royal expert Tom Sykes, commenting on the episode, said, William was so troubled by what he saw as his father's handling of the situation that the departure was a deliberate signal. Another expert described it as a line being drawn in the clearest possible way. Because in the world of the monarchy, where so much communication happens through gesture and protocol rather than direct statement, choosing not to sit at a table carries a meaning that everyone in the room understands immediately. William was communicating something about where his boundaries were, and he was doing it in a language the institution has spoken for centuries. This sits alongside a broader pattern of behavior that has seen William take on responsibilities that go well beyond what might be expected of an heir at this stage. He attended the COP30 climate summit on his father's behalf, representing the crown at one of the most significant international gatherings of the year. He has continued driving his Homewards initiative, which addresses homelessness across the United Kingdom, and has brought him into direct contact with communities and conversations that most senior royals would approach at a careful distance. He has shown up consistently and with evident purpose, building a public record that speaks to someone who has decided that the transition of power has, in practical terms, already begun. None of this has happened in isolation. It has happened alongside a royal family that is genuinely navigating a period of significant internal pressure. King Charles's health challenges over the past 2 years have been managed with considerable care by the palace, but they have also created a situation where the distribution of responsibility has shifted in ways that are hard to ignore. Senior aides have acknowledged, carefully and indirectly, that the demands on working royals have increased. The question of who is present, who is reliable, and who can be counted on to represent the crown with the right combination of authority and approachability has become more pressing than it has been in a long time. And it is in that context that the story of Peter Phillips and Harriet takes on an added layer of meaning, because Peter's wedding in June 2026 was not simply a private family celebration that happened to include some very recognizable guests. It was also, in the reading of several analysts and commentators who covered it, a demonstration of something William has been trying to show: that the monarchy can draw a clear line between those who are truly part of its working structure and those who exist at its edges, and that this distinction can be maintained without hostility or spectacle. Peter Phillips, untitled and operating entirely outside the formal royal apparatus, was welcomed warmly. Harry, his own first cousin, was not invited at all. Former royal butler Grant Harold, speaking about Peter's decision not to extend an invitation to Harry, described Peter as an exceptionally diplomatic person, suggesting the choice reflected something deliberate and considered rather than a careless oversight. The guest list for a private wedding with 150 people does not happen by accident, and the absences at that particular occasion, Harry, Meghan, Andrew, and Sarah Ferguson, mapped almost precisely onto the outline of William's vision for what a slimmed-down, focused working monarchy should look like. What is striking about all of this taken together is how different it looks from the version of William that most people formed their impressions of during the earlier years of his public life. He has always been seen as serious, dutiful, and committed. But for a long time, there was also a sense that he was defined largely by the role he was waiting to fulfill, rather than by any particular vision of his own. That impression has not survived the last 18 months intact. The William who is visible now is someone who knows exactly what he wants the monarchy to become, and who has been working toward that end with a consistency and a confidence that has genuinely caught people off guard. The question being asked in royal circles and increasingly in the wider public conversation about the future of the British monarchy is whether this approach will hold together as the transition of power continues. Modernizing an institution as old and as symbolically loaded as the crown is not simply a matter of changing guest lists or reducing staff numbers. It requires managing the expectations of millions of people who have emotional connections to the monarchy as it has always been, while simultaneously convincing a younger and more skeptical audience that the institution has a genuine reason to exist in the 21st century. Tom Parker Bowles, in his own way, illustrates exactly how difficult that balance is to strike. He is a man who clearly has a real relationship with the people at the center of the monarchy. He speaks about Charles and Camilla with obvious affection. He has described the king as a devoted and attentive step-grandfather to his children. And yet, the institution cannot accommodate him within its formal structure, because the rules that govern titles and standing were not written with his particular situation in mind, and bending them in his direction would create complications that the palace has decided are not worth managing. That is a very human story dressed up in constitutional language, and it reflects the tension that runs through everything the monarchy is currently trying to do. Peter and Harriet, by contrast, represent something the institution finds easier to work with. They are not asking for anything. They are not seeking titles, official duties, or a formal place in the working structure. Peter has spent his entire adult life demonstrating that proximity to the royal family does not have to mean dependence on it, and Harriet, arriving from entirely outside that world, has integrated herself into the family's private life with a straightforwardness that has clearly been welcomed. Together, they offer the monarchy a version of itself that it can point to with a degree of pride. Ordinary, grounded, and genuine, without any of the complications that have come from other directions in recent years. William has watched all of this unfold. He has attended the weddings, stood on the balconies, sat through the family gatherings, and navigated the private tensions that the public only catches glimpses of. And throughout all of it, he has been building something. Not loudly, not with the kind of drama that tends to generate headlines and then fade, but steadily and with evident patience. The surprising thing about William is not any single decision he has made or any particular moment that stands out. The surprising thing is the accumulation of it. The picture that emerges when you step back and look at everything together. The monarchy is being reshaped right now in real time by a man who has not yet formally taken its highest office. The boundaries of who belongs and who does not are being redrawn. The balance between tradition and relevance is being renegotiated, and the person doing most of that work is doing it without a crown on his head, without a formal mandate to change anything, and without saying very much about it at all. That, perhaps more than anything else, is what has surprised people most about Prince William. Not what he has said, but what he has quietly and consistently done.